Hello everyone and welcome to a new video covering some recent changes made to League of Legends in patch 5.18. We have a lot of changes, some bigger, some smaller, but there's a lot to cover, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so to start things off, I'll be covering some champion changes that were made. Starting with Anivia, we have a change to her E, Frostbite, that now treats Dragon and Baron as frosted for the purpose of Frostbite's double damage if they've been hit by Flash Frost or Glacial Storm in the last few seconds. Why this wasn't already in the game blows me away. It makes complete sense to me. It took them long enough to add this, in my opinion. Next up on the list, we got Braum with a very minor change to his Q cost, which personally I think it'll only affect him early game with trading. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. It just goes up from 45, 50, 55, 60, 65 to 55, 60, 65, 70, 75. Next up, we have Caitlyn with a slight cost and cooldown reduction to her W Yordle Snap Trap, 50 mana down to 30, and the cooldown 16 to 14 to 12 to 10 to 8, down from 20 to 17 to 14 to 11 to 8. Next up we have Darius, who I'm sure you know was reworked in the last patch, but it seems that Riot has made a couple changes to his Q regarding the health per unit and the maximum heal and the mana cost. As you can see, the heal per champion hit went down from 15% of missing health to 12% of missing health, but the maximum heal has gone up from 30% to 36%, and the cost has gone up from 30 at all ranks to 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. We don't have much for Elise other than a pretty sizable damage reduction to her Spiderling all in Spider form, down to 10, 15, 20, 25, from 10, 20, 30, 40. Next up, we have a very interesting change to Ezreal. His Arcane Shift now scales with AD, and as you can see from Riot's description, the world is ending. I don't see this being too huge of a problem. It's something that a lot of AD Ezreals probably need. A little more on top of their Q, because that's the only damage they really have from their abilities. But yeah, you'll probably be seeing a lot more AD Ezreals. I'm a fan for this change. I'd like to try it out. I'll probably be playing a lot more Ezreal myself. Okay, so there's been quite a few changes made to Fiora. Her base armor was reduced from 27 to 24, base health down from 570 to 550, and her health growth stat from 92 to 85. Fiora's Q will now reveal her to her target if she hits them while in the Fog of War, so basically you won't get any more sneaky Qs from Fiora from a bush or from behind a wall or something. Fiora's W now properly parries Thresh's death sentence, so there's not going to be any more Thresh hooks on Fiora. Basically, she'll parry everyone. It also, the tooltip correctly includes debuffs to the list of things that it blocks. Next up we have Galio with a slight tweaking to his ultimate. Idol of Duran can't be cancelled by movement commands for the first 0.25 seconds of its duration if it strikes at least one champion. So if you land your ult on at least one person, you can't cancel it by movement commands for a quarter of a second. If you miss that, just cancel that shit right away. Now, Garen's ultimate, Demacian Justice, got a little bit of cleanup with its passive and how it chooses its villain. Killing Garen no longer causes the killer to gain villainy, which basically, like, if Garen's behind in lane, losing lane, down a couple kills, it's going to be a lot harder for him to come back from that. It also fixed a bug where killing a clone of Garen's allies caused the killer to gain villainy, so if a Shaco clone was killed, the Shaco would gain villainy. If, say, a LeBlanc clone was killed, LeBlanc would gain villainy, and that's just not fair. Next up, Gangplank's stats on his E Powder Keg were slightly reduced. The bonus damage went down from 80, 110, 140, 170, 200 to 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, and the armor penetration went down to 40%. Now, Gangplank's powder kegs were already pretty hard to set up and get a good hit on an enemy, especially if you're in lane 1v1ing, but this should be a pretty nice change because if you do get hit by that powder keg, it will take a nice chunk of your health. Okay, now Jarvan got the smallest change out of anyone here with 2 extra base armor, probably just to help him in the early game jungle stages of the game. Lulu's health growth stat was knocked down from 82 to 74. Her passive pick can also now trigger tribute from a Spell Thief item line once per Lulu's basic attack. Okay, now there's a lot that changed with Mordekaiser, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail with it. If you want to read it all, you can pause the video to get more in-depth look at it. But I'm just going to read you the main description here. His base stats are down early game. W can now be cast on himself, but has a health cost. But the damage no longer overlaps with his ally. His healing is increased versus champions, and worse versus minions. Morgana's Q, Dark Binding, got a slight mana reduction, down from 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 to 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. A bug was fixed on Skarner's passive Crystal Spires, where Crystal Charge's attack speed and movement speed were scaling too quickly at early game levels and too slowly at later game levels. So the fix now will make it weaker early game, but hopefully a little bit stronger end game. His E Fracture was also reduced the slow amount from 45, 50, 55, 60, 65% to 30, 35, 40, 45%, and 50%. Next, Syndra's mana growth stat was increased from 50 to 63, and her E Scatter the Weak correctly knocks back spheres when cast immediately after a max ranged Dark Sphere. Tahm Kench got a couple of small changes. The first one is basically just making it smoother for people using normal cast to combo their Q and W, Tongue Lash and Devour. And Thick Skin changes the color of Tom's gray health for him and enemies has been changed in colorblind mode to be visible. Twitch's Q Ambush now has a stealth delay while taking damage reduction from 6 seconds to 4.5 seconds, so Twitch will be able to stealth a lot faster while in combat now. Viger got a pretty nice little buff where his Q now grants AP on champion assists in addition to champion kills. His W Dark Matter also has a delay and cooldown reduction by 0.25 seconds. So you'll probably be seeing a couple more Vigers here with this nice little buff. And the last champion change we have this patch is Zyra with her W Rampant Growth. It basically just makes her plants a little more responsive, and they prioritize the target Zyra has most recently attacked rather than the closest target. Now we have a couple item changes to the enchantments for the jungle items. Devourers has been reduced from 1 point of magic damage per stack to 0.67, and at sated 60 magic damage to 50 magic damage. Now the warrior enchantment was just given 5 attack damage, so it's a small buff. Zeke's Harbinger got an armor reduction from 35 down to 30, but the charge up duration was lowered from 8 seconds to 5 seconds, and that doesn't count towards Zeke's crit and AP bonus, that still remains at 8. Now the last item change this patch is the Dead Man's Plate, and all that is Lulu's Polymorph now causes the target to lose momentum. And the last thing I'll be including in this video is Riot's release of Championship Kalista. This is this year's championship skin. It looks pretty cool, but I don't see much of a difference from the normal Kalista. It's both all blue, ghosty, you know. I don't know, we'll see how it looks in game. All we have right now is this splash art. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And thank you all for watching this video. Please like it if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more and help support it. And please comment any feedback you have or opinions on how you can make these videos better, because this is my first video of this kind and I'd like to improve it a little bit, but please let me know, give me your feedback, and thanks for watching.